Good morning. Next item on the May 10th, 2017 Wicomico County Council agenda is Recreation Parks Tourism.
Good morning.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Very well. Mr. President and Council, thank you for having us this morning. Appreciate it. We're here obviously to present an overview of the FY18 budget for Department of Recreation Parks and Tourism, which is, of course, our quality of life department. Since technically we're presenting three different budgets in three different funds, Mr. President, with your permission, we'd like to attack one of those at a time, and just kind of go in order.
Okay.
Our hope was to do Recreation Parks, then Tourism, then the Youth and Civic Center. So
Okay.
the way we'll kind of lay this out is I'd like to introduce each one of the budgets. I'm going to give you kind of the whys as to what we did and talk about some of the initiatives that we had, and things that we were trying to accomplish with these budgets. And then I'll pass to Pam, who's our Deputy Director. She'll give you some of the numbers and particularly highlight the variances from last year so you can see the big differences between this year and last. And then certainly we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on any of the budgets.
Great. Thank you.
In terms of Recreation and Parks, I'll give you two of the major initiatives that we were trying to address in this current budget cycle. Number one, and this is always a goal that we have, is to keep our parks safe, functional, and attractive. That's becoming a challenge for us for a couple of reasons. Number one, many of our parks, as you know, are getting older. A lot of our parks were built in the 80s and 90s, and so we're hitting 20, 30 years on a lot of these parks. And so they're needing a lot of attention and care, which is reflected in this budget. Secondly, one of the challenges is that to a degree we're a victim of our own success in tourism. With some of the major tournaments running 3 weeks of nationals in the middle of summertime and running tournaments every weekend, that's been a big success for us. But it takes a major toll on our resources, and particularly in parks, and particularly human resources. We experienced that last summer was an exceptional summer with the 3 weeks of the World Series. We had a lot of rain, and during that period, as you're trying to get games going and basically keep that thing going, it takes all of our manpower, including Pam and myself at one point, just to get fields going and get play happening. And while you're doing that, and it's all hands on deck to address that event, grass doesn't stop growing at all of your other parks. So all of our other parks suffered when you get in situations like that, because we're really forced to make these events go. So one of the things you'll see in this budget, which Pam will touch on, is we're proposing to during our peak seasons to have contractual services for grass and trash removal at certain parks, the outlying parks. So during our peak seasons, those things can go, those parks won't suffer, and we can still meet the needs of all of our events. So that's one of the initiatives that we had. A second major initiative, again, that Pam will touch on, is has to do with capital investment in vehicles. In our parks division, we've got 30 passenger vehicles, and 15 of those are older than the year 2000. So our fleet is fairly old, and some of that needs to be addressed. So we've included in this budget, and this is part of the executive's initiative, to update the entire fleet of the county. There's $160,000 in our Rec and Parks budget to address that in our parks.
When you say the entire fleet, do you mean the entire fleet that's older than 2000? Or
That's my understanding, is what the executive was wanting to address on a county-wide level. What is in this Rec and Parks budget is about $160,000 to address those older vehicles. Yes,
So Parks and Recs has 30 passenger vehicles.
yes.
And how many are older than what?
15 of them, my understanding, 15 are older than the year 2000. So that's another thing, and Pam will talk you through the numbers here, but that was another initiative that, in addition to our parks getting older, our vehicles are getting older, and those things need to be addressed. So I'll pass to Pam here, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So if you just break it down to those couple initiatives and our main appropriation, our appropriation is going up $340,000. 170 of it is going up due to benefits and salaries. So the 2% and benefit allocation. So you take off 170, you're down to $170,000 worth of variance that was in our department's control about the tax appropriation. The first thing he mentioned is parks safe and functional. We added $16,000 to do contractual mowing, and we added $10,000 to add contractual trash removal. So that's $26,000 of the $170,000. The remainder is related to vehicles and equipment. We have 57, I have a list. We have $57,000 in vehicles that we had identified, which is 3 vehicles, basically a van and 2 Crown Vics. And then we identified 2 other vehicles that we believe are older than 2000 for another $45,000.
How many
And-
vehicles with the cars? I'm sorry.
We're going to replace 5.
5.
Do you have a page number for what you're referring to?
No, this is
It's
on.
page 20 on the
Page
right-hand
20.
side. On the right-hand side.
I'm
That's the one
referring to
follow.
notes,
This
sorry.
number here would be page 20 on the top right-hand side on the muni sheet.
And then we are also asking for $53,000 worth of equipment. That's to replace basically 3 mowers that we have, and we are asking for 2 new pieces of equipment.
Hang on a second.
Yep.
You're going way too fast.
Sorry.
It's okay, thanks. Does everybody see that page? Where it lists the 2. It doesn't mention the 5, it just mentions the 2 trucks. On the munis page, on the right-hand side, it'll say 20,
Up top.
top right, yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we've got 3 numbers in for capital. You've got $57,320. That's the 3 that we put in, and then there's an additional 45 that have been added under trucks. So those add up to just over $100,000, and then you've got heavy equipment for $53,000. That $53,000 is broken down into 3 mowers, and we are asking for 2 new pieces of equipment, a backhoe attachment to attach to one of our tractors so that we can dig out some ditches, which is $11,000, and a stump grinder, which is $9,000. So again, to break down the change in the appropriation request that we're looking at, it really boils down to those 2 initiatives: replace equipment and to help keep our parks safe and functional while we're doing some of the other work that we do related to events.
What are you doing for stump grinding now?
Chuck, can you?
Contract. Have you checked the maintenance on a stump grinder? What it'll cost you to maintain that?
No,
Okay.
we have not.
You might want to do that before you buy one.
No, and I was gonna touch on what Councilman Joe Holloway said. We were discussing that, was it Monday? When they were in here and they were getting a new stump grinders. I don't know if they'll need to duplicate services. if you
That's a
don't
different
have
type of grinder. They're talking about a mobile grinder, you grind the stump that's in the ground, right? They were talking about like a tub grinder, I think, the solid waste was.
Okay. Because they said they were keeping the old one too, so I didn't know. For some reason, I was thinking it was a stump grinder, but thank you.
So when the softball tournaments are going on, you want money, so county employees are servicing the softball tournaments? And you want money to contract so that the parks, these are the other parks.
And
can
it,
take
and
care
it's
of
not all the other parks, it's
Yeah,
outlying
outlying
parks
ones.
that sometimes suffer when
Yeah.
our resources get pulled to these events.
I mean, it just kind of, it strikes me a little bit strange. It's, again, the parks are, park staffs for the people of Wicomico County. It seems that if there needs to be extra staff, then that should be higher, maybe the softball people should hire extra staff to deal with these tournaments that, that park staff are for Wicomico Parks. These are, this is an initiative that is primarily people from outside coming in and doing things. I mean, if we don't have enough people to deal with Wicomico Parks, focus should be on the people of Wicomico County, not people coming in. It's kind of
We
my.
could hire some more people.
Well, I mean, perhaps if it's, these tournaments are costing the county money, perhaps, we should, I mean, and I understand we pay these people to, so we're paying them to come here, then we're having to use all of our county staff to service
Yeah.
them coming here, that we paid them to be here, and then contract out so the people of Wicomico County don't suffer. That,
Yeah, I understand.
this is just the first thought that.
No, I
hits me,
understand,
so.
and I understand.
I've got Wayne riled up, so.
It doesn't take long.
I'm not riled up. No, I would just simply add the perspective that
Yes, we do service these tournaments, but these tournaments have an enormous economic impact. And our hotels, our restaurants, our shops, I would suspect that those businesses would be very supportive of what our staff is suggesting here.
But doesn't
Yeah,
it have
the
a
other-
big impact on the people that's putting the tournaments on too financially?
Yeah, and they do pay,
Big deal.
they pay basically an overall fee that helps our operational budget. So they do contribute towards that.
How much is that fee?
It's roughly about $25,000 for that particular event.
Are you talking about the U-Trip tournament?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's just to help that's not the event budget, that's just to help the operations of the resources that we put in that you're talking about. I think the other challenge would be if you're talking a 3-week stretch to hire quality people to do the kind of job that we want for these types of events. It's hard to hire somebody for that short a time and really meet the needs. So we've been very successful because of a lot of the support services that we can provide with our structure. So I think it's a valid point, but I think it would be a challenge to do that. And I think our hope is to with the contractual, just to make sure that everything's staying up to snuff.
Possibly what Mark is suggesting is that when you put together your budget for these events, are you including that as a true cost?
Yes.
Yes,
Does that help you?
And we're getting reimbursed
So
for
when
a
they
lot of
say
those
they're making a
costs.
particular profit on that event, they are accounting for what the county employees are contributing.
Yes.
I mean, do you have a breakdown on how much the county spends to support these tournaments and how much the county is, how much they pay the county actually? I'm not talking about the economic impact, I'm talking about the 25,000 fee and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, as far as, we did a study a couple of years ago as far as the full-time labor and the support services, and that's how we restructured the deal with USSSA. So that's why they basically cut us a check for $25,000 outside of the event expenses. And then with that particular event, it's basically a joint co-promote event. So we kind of share in the profit loss of that event.
With who?
USSSA, with that event.
Okay, I didn't know if you meant Ocean City as well, since
No,
they were-
no.
that deal that you work out with.
Yeah, and they contribute as well to the event. That's kind of a separate,
Would you like
separate piece.
to see that, Doc?
Yeah, I mean, if the county, county revenue coming into the county kind of balances out the revenue going out, I mean, I don't have much of a problem with it. I start having more of a problem if county taxpayers are kind of, being forced to, the more county taxpayers are paying to support these sort of things, I have more of a problem with it, so.
I guess my thought was if, and getting back to John's micromanaging issue, if, to get a true cost.
Qualify that, Joe. John who?
John, yeah, it was John, right?
I'll wear that hat. I'm okay with that.
I guess to get a true cost on that, why would not you let the county employees that normally maintain our parks continue to that and contract with people to do the special events? And that would give you more of a true cost, and then the folks that's putting the event on can share in that cost, however you derive it some.
Hard to find, Joe.
Well, you gotta find them one way or the other.
Well, but
So you gotta find
them.
mowers, there
Well,
are
but-
people who have people skills to run these
we're,
events.
with the mowers, we believe we can find somebody, we can find a hauler to go out and pick up the trash. And we can find a contractual mower to mow for the season. And, we have gone down the route of trying to hire ourselves and hire part-time people. But again, it's such a short window. It's 3 weeks here, it's this weekend, it's that weekend. It is difficult to hire that kind of short-term employee. And so we have changed our thought process to this thought process to try to alleviate the strain on our Parks Department, where we believe we can get it covered and get it contracted out, where we haven't been successful in hiring the part-time employees.
And with the baseball and softball fields, you really have to have a special mower to cut that turf and to do it right. And you just can't go out there with a push
Well, and
mower or
it-
ride mower and cut it. 'cause
And our
it's
employees
special
know,
grass.
and our employees know how to rake the fields and fill them in with the rain and that kind of stuff. And again, it becomes a specialized process to keep the fields up and running. Last summer, I became general labor at 6 a.m. in the morning, and because we needed a body out there. Doesn't add anything to the cost for the department, because I'm just paid, but you needed a body. Steve and I both went out to different fields to spread, and we were just bodies carrying bags. And that's hard to find.
And if you use the baseball fields, you have to cut the mound down flat for softball, and then your staff has to go back and rebuild those, and you just don't put a pile of dirt there. It's gotta be done right with the clay and everything. It's
Wayne
I think
has,
special
Wayne has a
task.
lot of free weekends too.
Make a note of that.
I think
It is
the-
fun.
I think the other thing that is important here to understand is that these tournaments, this is an industry. I mean, this is a national industry, and attracting large-scale events like this and retaining large-scale events like this, very, very competitive. There are a lot of communities out there who would love to steal this event from us, so the negotiations become somewhat artful because these people have other alternatives.
And I think a lot of what we're suggesting here isn't a criticism.
Oh,
It's
no, no,
more-
we
It's
understand
more
that.
curiosity.
Sure.
And I think Mark makes a good point. It'd be nice to know, because
Yeah.
even if it were a loss,
Absolutely.
even if we're lost on the numbers to us, again, we know what the benefit is overall, but it'd be nice to know what the particular, numbers are
Yeah.
to put it together. It's-
Be happy to share that.
Yeah.
We have that.
Well, I mean, and if these things are primarily benefiting the hotels and things like that, I mean, I know hotels tax, the county collects one and it's used for certain, it has to be earmarked for certain things, but if it's, the benefits mainly going to the hotels, then let's look at how hotel tax revenue is used and use, if we can use some of that to do some of these things, then let's do that. It should be more of, the people who get the benefit should be paying the cost, not, the person who lives down at Valve, their Cedar Hill Park is not usable because, these tournaments are coming to town, are not as usable.
Right.
They don't care that, some hotel in Salisbury is getting more rooms. They're like, our parks aren't doing great and I'm
Right.
paying taxes for this, and all the parks people are, dealing with the baseball fields to benefit people from Pennsylvania. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the major impacts are obviously gonna be the hotels, the restaurants, filling stations, convenience stores, grocery stores. So the real justification here is the economic impact on the community, and we believe that that's very positive, but we don't have any issue at all coming back to you with, okay, inside the county, this is what the profit and loss statement looks like. Just understand, though, that this is very competitive.
Oh, we have 100% confidence.
Yeah.
No,
These guys
and
here.
you should, these are good people.
Yeah, we'd be happy to share that with you, because we are getting reimbursed. That's not taxpayer, the events are paying their
Yeah,
share.
and that's my main concern.
Yeah.
And if taxpayers are, if we could do something like the hotel tax, shift some of that, then I'd be much more, much more comfortable.
I thought you were going to suggest raising the hotel tax.
Oh, boy.
Boy,
Reallocate.
we would have had to have a recess if I heard that.
I need to go.
Don't think you need that.
If I may,
Certainly.
two other things I'll point out with the Recreation Parks budget. There is an allocation for the 150 celebration, which I'll be here next Tuesday to talk about. And then also, we anticipate next year our revenues to be higher with the Parker expansion. The new fields basically won't be online until next March, so we're only dealing with a half year of revenue with rentals. So we anticipate in next year's cycle, we'll have a full year, and that should improve the picture there, so.
Yeah, Pam, you were stopped on the stump grinder.
Right.
There was, I was waiting to hear about the facility enhancement, $271,000. I didn't know what facility that
Okay,
was.
what that represents is that, that's using, and none of that is coming out of appropriation, that's coming out of fund balance. That is spending down, fund balance in Rec and Parks to,
It's primarily
Do-
Parker.
do Parker projects, do items related to, Cedar Hill Marina, do,
Which items at Cedar Hill right now?
we're gonna do bulkhead replacement, and so we're looking at, we're getting a state grant for $99,000, but we believe that, we're gonna need another $25,000, so again, we're gonna take that out of fund balance.
That's the stuff that's in the CIP.
This is, stuff that is internal the 99,000 is in the CIP.
Yeah.
The match is here with this piece associated with it. The other stuff is, just operational type projects, one-year type things, we need to do a walk-in freezer out at Parker. So that's in that $271,000. We need to repave around the stables out at the Winter Place Equestrian Center. We would like to replace the siding on the education building at Pemberton. So in the budget, you will see that there is a use of fund balance of $271,000, and then there is the expense of $271,000. So again, none of that is coming from the tax appropriation. All of that is coming from fund balance that has been saved up from programs and items over the year.
And there's no tiny houses at
No.
Cedar Hill?
No.
That's for next year?
Not yet.
Not
No,
yet.
I know.
Nope.
I get questions, so,
So nope.
okay.
None of that is in any of this. So again, we have a list of projects. We will prioritize those projects as we have the time, but we have an idea of what the 271 is intended to be. And if something comes up that, XYZ breaks, we will reallocate it. But again, all of those funds are fund balance appropriation. Any other questions we can answer on Rec and Parks?
You done?
Yep, hang on. When you have .05, box office manager, .05s, is this someone that does multiple different jobs?
Yes, last year was the first year. We did we took certain positions and looked at them across the board. So like Steve and myself, we're allocated across all three divisions.
Okay.
The box office is allocated across rec, parks, and tourism as well. The finance staff that we have at the Civic Center, we have one person who does our payroll and AP, so she is allocated across all three divisions. But we have another person who is primarily focused on the Civic Center accounting, and so that person is not allocated. So we made that change in the fiscal 17 budget, but in your budget, looking at the level of detail, you'll see people divided up so that in the past, we used to do a expense transfer where we would just do a lump sum transfer of operating expenses. Revenue would come into Rec and Parks for certain employees, and revenue would go out of Rec and Parks for other employees. And so this way, we're just doing it through the salary and benefit module, where my salary gets divided, Steve's salaries gets divided.
So I knew some of the department supervisors were spread out. So some of the box office employees are also
Yes.
spread out this way?
We
'Cause
have-
I saw that and I said, where's box office managers at Parks and Recs? I
Right.
thought that would be under the
Well,
Civic
but
Center.
if you think about it, the Parks and Rec, all of our after-school programs, all of our sports events, all of them go through the box office. And all of those registrations are taken in the box office. So the cost of having that employee needs to be shared with Parks and Rec because they do those events as well. So the people that are spread, we have marketing that is spread. We have our sales staff who sell sponsorships out at Parker, out at the Civic Center. That person's salary is spread. Our Steve, myself, Tammy Taylor is spread. Our finance staff is spread. Because again, they work for all three divisions. Instead of having three different people doing the job, we have one person who spreads it across all three.
Right. Wait,
You may,
go ahead.
you may recall, while Pam is on that, you may recall 12 to 14 months ago, there was a whole discussion about the number of journal entries that were being made between the three departments in that division. And in the fact that PKS commented on that, Leslie Lewis commented on that as being something that we should fix, if you will. So embedding this in the budget and in the accounting process itself in Munis eliminates all those journal entries. So that's the reason that we did this, to basically
Sure, yeah.
streamline the accounting and take that human factor away from it, if you will.
I didn't understand the page 82 with the 2,617,248. I couldn't see where that worked into everything else.
Can you give me an account number, please?
520260. Transfer to others, below transfer to others, and it says operating expenses. Operating expense, 52, operating expense.
Yeah, I don't have the same printout. I summarized my printout, so
Here.
And the number,
I can see. That's the appropriation, I think. Transfer to others.
that's-
No, wait.
And then it says total
2617.
operating expenses.
The 106. We don't.
that is the appropriation number, but I don't know why that's.
Okay, yeah, okay. Our fund is Fund 60. So on the revenue side, you're gonna see that same number of 2617, 24880, that come in as revenue. This is the 01 fund, which is the general fund, which is the offset to send it over to our fund. This $2 million is revenue in our fund. It's expense in the general fund to give it to us.
It's the intergovernmental transfer, John.
Yeah, I was just trying to,
Yeah.
I'll have to look at it a little more, I
Yeah.
guess, maybe to see how it all lines up. I couldn't see, sometimes I try to see where the numbers match up. I couldn't see where that number.
The account
in.
number that it matches up to will be up in the revenue section of Rec and Parks, and it should be your very first, it says transfer from general fund, so it's account number 60A 0860, and then 456060. It ties exactly to
Good.
that number.
Okay. No.
So that number is actually embedded into the general funds piece, and then we get it as revenue.
Okay. Getting down to the smaller things, I noticed a lot of times, like in club volleyball, salaries, et cetera, went from 3,500 to zero. Are these programs that have stopped?
Andy, you want to comment?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of trying to get a feel for what's happening as far as if your programs being dropped, if some of the increases are due to more membership, or whether it's change in the fees or something to that effect.
Specifically with club volleyball,
Yeah.
you mentioned that program, it did not operate this past winter, so we did not allocate for it to happen. There's some other clubs that have moved into the area, so we're not moving with that club. Is there other specifics?
We have not changed any fees in this budget, so there is no fee changes. We have made some changes of making the decision to sort of lump like things together. So some kids' programs might be under the same ending account number, where in the past we would have had 4 account numbers for them. Now we have them as one. It allows us to track them, and if we make a change like that, it doesn't affect the budget significantly. We can add on a different program or allocate a different program there. So it's more of, we've made some changes in account numbers. We have not made any changes to any of our fees for this year.
Okay. And that's kind of like what I'd anticipated. I just was curious about that. And I only try to look, sometimes I look for extreme differences just to see what it is on the WSCC Adventure Education. It was a revenue from 11.4 to 17. And again, I was just curious as to maybe if there was more interest in that program, what was going on there.
Yes, there actually is. We this past year met with the Board of Education, and they're favorable for us being able to do more programming in the schools and after-school programs. So the plan would be for C.R. Kraus, our program director, to be able to go to after-school programs and actually do programming there. We also have seen a kind of an uptick in pulling from groups outside the county to do field trips there. So after-school groups and then summer camps are coming. So we're seeing growth. And the final piece is we last year started an Aquaculture Center down at Cedar Hill Marina. And our oyster nursery component to that we're growing oyster seed, we've actually, instead of just using it as an educational component, we found local buyers who want to buy that spat and then put it on their oyster bed. Yeah, so that is now a revenue generator. So between those three things, we've seen an uptick in revenue.
Very interesting.
Speaking of, going back to some of the labor cost, this is probably a wider issue for Wayne, but is the new Maryland Family Leave Act going to impact you guys? I mean, because I know that there was, it changed kind of the definition of what's allowed family leave and mandating for, for employees. Has that been looked at yet, Wayne? It's just something, I mean, I know it's a wider issue, but it's something I thought of when we were talking
Yeah,
about
Mark, it has been looked at. I don't think it's gonna have any significant impact on the county, but, that's a question that we should probably, review in detail with Michelle Ennis.
Yeah, just, because with, here, there's, some of the more
Right.
employees here, they're not straight employees, so I didn't know
Right.
some of the changes here, where especially would hit,
Right.
this one, but okay.
And I noticed that the Pirates Wharf, the hunting license, I guess that was dropped.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
We don't want people hiking in the woods getting shot at.
So there really are
We
people
discussed
hunting,
that.
there are people hiking in the woods.
So people are gonna be allowed to hike there.
So there are no trespassing signs or something to that effect?
Where are we on that?
Yeah, I don't know, Chuck, do we have signs here?
There were signs put up a year ago, we haven't taken it down. There hasn't been any change in policy.
And
what's
we
the
had
compliance?
anticipated, as you recall, Mark, we had anticipated a select cut in that forest as well. So we just felt that forgoing hunting until that whole situation was cleared up was probably a good decision.
And I guess in your printing, do you put out RFPs or do you do it in-house? I'm assuming you don't do it in-house with some of the
For
printing.
the bigger jobs, we will bid them out.
The hospitalization went from 127,000 to 77,000.
Allocations, John, you're going to see across each department, you're gonna see changes in the benefits allocations versus last year. Again, that's something that I would encourage you to speak to Michelle about in terms of how she did the calculations to make those allocations. That's the reason I believe we gave you, at the end of the budget, a summary that showed what the consolidated cost
Right.
changes year over year, so that you could see what the real lift or decrease was. The internal allocations are
Okay.
what they are.
Okay. Sometimes I try to
Right.
differentiate between allocations and actual cost-saving measures. I don't know sometimes. Sometimes when I ask the questions, I somewhat think I know the answer, but
Yeah, essentially, those allocations on hospitalization on health costs, John, would be based on that department's employee census and who in that department is participating in the health plan and to what extent they're participating.
okay, understood.
Any other recreation parks or?
I have one question, if John's not done.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
What is, park police, what are they?
Good, good.
They are a summer, part-time staff that, go out and monitor our parks. And, they basically are a set of eyes that give us the ability, instead of our staff who's actually mowing, and they're a set of eyes to go out, and they go out on weekends, monitor, and if there's an issue, they can contact the sheriff's department.
Wouldn't that fall under the sheriff's department to do patrols?
They
It
do.
says you increase for year-round patrol, not summer.
Well, right now, we do it from March to November. What we're looking to do is for weekends to keep that part-time person on for the weekends. Again, the sheriff's department does patrols of the county properties, but they're not just focusing on parks. This person gives us a set of eyes to see if there's anything wrong out at the parks. Is there something that needs to be fixed out there that we don't know about?
They'll
Is-
check in on rentals
Yeah,
and,
so they're not, when you say park police, I think protection.
yeah.
No, they're a park ranger
Well,
is
at one
the.
time, they were carrying guns.
He was a deputy That guy was.
No, there was part-time Parks and Rec people carrying
We're
guns.
unarmed now, so.
They're not carrying guns anymore.
I know, but I didn't know if they brought that back.
No.
No.
But, and that was my point, if they were patrolling for protection, I think
No.
I'd
No.
prefer to see a deputy out there, but.
No.
Yeah, I could see them monitoring and looking
Yeah.
for things that are damaged and before the public goes out there. Thank you.
I see you got one of the standard on cost for mulch, $6,000. Where do you buy your mulch at?
Check.
We actually put it out for bid, but locally, Eastern Shore Forest Products, if we need small amounts, we make it a certified safety service under our label. And even though the mulch that we buy now lasts a lot longer than the stuff we see for free from the county, every year it's still going to get topped off and added to it.
So what the county has doesn't have the quality that you can use, or?
Correct, it does not meet the safety standards.
Playgrounds.
Very good. Can we
Any
move
other
to
questions?
tourism?
Everybody good?
Very good.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we'll move to the tourism budget. As you know, tourism is our only true enterprise. Speaking of room tax, there's no county appropriation in tourism. It's completely funded by room tax and money that we generate. I'll highlight three major goals as to what we were trying to accomplish with this tourism budget. Number one, and this is really the big one, is we were successfully fixed the structural deficit that we had in the tourism budget. Pam referenced the salary allocations of overhead staff and all those folks. We made that change about a year ago, and what that did, tourism took the biggest hit in that, in absorbing all those salaries. So we had about $120,000 structural deficit in tourism, which last year we had budgeted to use fund balance. Well, we didn't want to do that every year, to use $120,000 just to balance that budget. So we were able to submit to you a balanced budget through the combination of increased revenues and decreased expenses. We were able to balance that budget. So we're not using any fund balance as far as the operational budget goes. So that was one thing that we wanted to accomplish, which we did. The second emphasis that you'll see in this budget is a slight increase in advertising and promotions. Particularly in tourism, we felt like we had a really good opportunity with what we're doing at the Parker complex with adding the ball fields, what we're doing at the Youth and Civic Center, and even what we've been doing at Purdue Stadium. These assets are now improving. So we're really in tourism now in a sell mode. And so we've increased our advertising and promotions. It's now our responsibility to fill these facilities and make sure that these facilities are generating the income that we need. So we've allocated additional resources to make that happen. And then the third major goal, which Pam can touch on further, is we wanted to leverage our fund balance in tourism. We have a pretty healthy fund balance, roughly $1 million in tourism as far as fund balance, and we want to leverage that to invest in assets that help tourism. So for instance, in our budget is $150,000 from the tourism reserve to help us complete the expansion at Parker. We've got $25,000 in there for new basketball goals, which are needed at the Civic Center, which support the tourism Governor's Challenge basketball tournament, which is now a nationally recognized event. So those are tourism assets that we need. So the Tourism Reserve Fund is being dedicated in part to help with those things. So those were three of the major goals that we wanted to address in this budget. I'll let Pam talk through any other numbers and happy to answer questions.
Well, as he said, last year we used $117,000 of fund balance. That was primarily to balance the operations. We took all of that off, and the fund balance usage is $161,000. Well, Steve just mentioned $175,000 worth of very specific capital projects that tourism is going to fund out of the room tax revenue that we get. With that one of them, I do need to mention, you guys have in your budget message an Exhibit B, capital budget for fiscal year 2018. There's a typo on that related to the $150,000. In the Munis numbers, there is the $150,000 transfer. This report did not include the $150,000 as coming from enterprise funds. So when we try to go to actually spend the project money, the money can't get into the project. So I'm requesting, there's actually a line for it under Recreation, Parks, and Tourism. It says expansion of athletic complex, but it says $0. I'm requesting that in the enterprise column, you put in $150,000 there. The money's already in the budget. It's already accounted for in Munis. It just didn't get on the Exhibit B via typo.
I'll give you a revised exhibit.
You give us the whole,
It's a
could you
mechanical,
give us that whole breakdown in
Yeah.
some written structure so that we can
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
at it later? Sure.
it's mechanical error. The funding is inside the budget, the exhibit is wrong. I should mention also that the uses of the tourism fund balance are all bubbled up through the Tourism Advisory Board, approved by that board and recommended to the executive staff. So it's gone through a lot of filtering by the time it makes its way into the budget.
So again, there's no Munis change, but there is a functional change to allow us to be able to spend that money come July 1st. So,
I'll fix that.
Okay. Yeah, if you'll give us something to that effect.
Yes.
Sure. We can
yep.
take time to view it.
Any questions on tourism?
What kind of upgrades are you doing to the Welcome Center? I see the Welcome Center decor updates.
Yeah,
Anything big, or is it just?
we've got HVAC, which we're addressing now. Kristen, what was in that
This
list?
fiscal year.
Yeah.
We're also adding we've had some issues outside the building, so we're looking at adding a security system, having a big problem with skateboarders after hours on the jet. So that's a large portion of it there, and then also upgrading the phone system, which I believe is part of a larger project for the county.
Okay.
And then we're doing just some smaller cosmetic things on the inside, maybe freshen up the paint,
Okay.
that site.
And I went out there during the flood that we had, and it looked like the water was coming above the air conditioning units that were out there. Had that been addressed?
We shut that off during that storm. We shut the units off and unplugged them, and then with the new system, we.
You're gonna elevate it more?
Yeah,
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, the only other question that I had was, again, and maybe it's just part of this allocation thing, that's usually what I contribute to, but I hate to fail to ask. Within tourism, there are like 3 or 4 pages where, from prior years, there's, you're going from 0 to, $8,000 or whatever it might be. A ton of that. It's almost 4 pages of that. I'm not so sure that maybe when we see something like this, it could be helpful. The budget message is really great. When we see certain things happening like this that might set off red flags, it'd be good if we kind of had maybe a budget message for individual, for items like this.
Yeah, that's a good point, John, and actually, we had thought that would be an improvement to the budget that we present to council, because when we're making what I'll call accounting changes,
Right.
explaining those accounting changes to the people who are reviewing the budget and passing judgment on the budget, is important, and we should probably do a better job of that for you.
Okay.
One,
Thanks.
in the past, we would just budget for events at tourism as one lump sum number. So we would budget $1 million in revenue and $1 million in expenses for tourism events. We have made the decision, and why you're seeing a lot of those go from 0, most of those numbers probably have a 5-digit project code at the end that starts 63 and then have something else on it. I unfortunately know way too many numbers.
They do have 6-3.
If they end in a 5-digit code and start with 63, what those mean are those are project codes associated with individual events that we run. So we have now decided to budget at the event level. We still give ourselves space for new events, so we still have a lump sum number, but that lump sum number has gotten a lot smaller. We now budget for wine festival. We now budget for the beer festival. We budget for pork in the park. So anything that ends in a 5-digit 63220 happens to be the USSSA.
profit, I'm looking right at it.
63120 is, I think, pork in the park.
Yep.
And so, and then you've got 63150 is either wine festival or beer, and I can't remember which.
GBF,
That's Good Beer Festival.
Good Beer Festival, okay.
So, what we've made the decision is, so anything that ends in a 5-digit number and you see it go from 0 to that, we have made the decision to budget at the event level, not just at the gross level.
That's excellent.
And again, that gets down to a fundamental change in accounting, because heretofore, we would have budgeted and made group allocations and then done a post-event analysis of what happened at that event. Rather than doing that, what we're doing is we're budgeting and accounting inside Munis for each one of those events so that it generates that profit and loss in and of itself. It's much, much better accounting.
Sure.
So we're drilling down in detail, but as you do that, it creates a lot of questions. And we'll do a better job of trying to explain those things as we keep making changes.
When Pam started, she had a whole page of notes there, and she was giving us information that's not in here for us to understand it. So if at all possible, if you could give us a budget message of some sort, that would be helpful, to me at least.
Sure.
It's fine.
I see some information about amusement tax in here. Is that, the amusement tax, is that what we get from the Purdue Stadium too? Is that the ticket sales is the amusement tax?
It's 10% amusement
Yeah.
tax, Mark, that goes to the state of Maryland.
Is that what
That's
ticket
not
sales
reflected
at
in
the
the-
Civic Center?
Yeah, where's our allocation of, don't we get some allocation from the, I'm talking about Purdue Stadium,
I
from
think
them? in
the
terms
Purdue
of-
Stadium, I believe, is in actually the general fund.
In the general fund?
So the
Okay.
Purdue Stadium share of the amusement
Yeah.
tax is in the general fund.
Okay, so that's not, that's what I don't
But
see
the
it on
amusement
here.
tax that you're seeing is the, we have to pay amusement tax related to some of our events to the state, and then we get 95% of it back.
Oh, okay, I didn't
They
realize
keep a
that.
5% amount overall.
So that's like the Good Beer Festival amusement tax, 17,000. That's what we pay that to the state, and then the
Correct.
state gives us money back.
The state gives us
I didn't
amusement tax.
realize we did that.
Yes.
See, we
So-
didn't know that.
They take their 5% administrative fee.
Okay, all right.
And we have that same amusement tax at, but it's in a lump sum number. You won't see the expense at the Civic Center because it's buried in the events there, but you'll see the revenue come back in to Civic Center because, again, we pay out amusement tax to the state associated with the events that we bring in. We have to fill out a form, show them our profit and loss for the event, what were the ticket sales. We then ship them a check, and then they correspondingly send us money back.
What are the different fees attached to the ticket sales at the Civic Center? I know several times over the years they were increased.
Yeah. Can we get into that with Civic Center?
Well, since she was talking about it, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I can wait.
No, it's fine. Yeah, there are user fees that are associated with tickets at Civic Center. Those fees, we just recently reviewed those with the administration. They're lower than what you pay in Ocean City or other facilities, but it's industry standard, and Chuck can give us more
One
details
fee
on
was
that.
attached to pay for new seats.
Any questions on tourism yet? No?
Thought we were
Everybody
done
good?
with
All
Yeah,
right.
with Civic Center, there's a restoration fee, and we're actually going to touch on all that
Okay,
here with
good.
Civic Center. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Ray.
Very good. So is Youth and Civic Center, do we have time?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, very good.
We'll keep it short. We'll see how.
Lucky us. Youth and Civic Center, there are three major initiatives that I'd like to touch on as far as what we were trying to accomplish in this budget. One of the major goals was to continue to be aggressive with our restoration fund. Councilman Dodd, that's what you're referring to. There's a restoration fund that's separate from our operating budget that we collect on room rentals. There's a fee on room rentals and ticket fees that goes to the restoration of that building. We budgeted $785,000 of that money to continue to be aggressive to make the improvements at the Youth and Civic Center. So we've started to see that over the last year and a half, We're really starting to see some improvements, and we want to continue to be aggressive in that. And I'll let Pam talk in a minute here as far as what that money's dedicated to. The second initiative that we worked out is we did work out a trade with the Board of Education. As you know, the local high schools will use the Youth and Civic Center for their graduations. We need to use Board of Ed facilities for our after-school programs. And so we got together with the Board of Education and updating our MOU and said, well, why don't we just trade as far as rental fees go? So starting next year, assuming this budget is approved, we'll waive the rental fees for the high school graduations. They're going to waive our rental fees for the schools, for our after-school program. And so you'll see a slight reduction as far as the revenue in the Civic Center, but we felt like that made sense as far as,
I want to commend you guys on doing that. That's something that's been a long time coming, getting the schools back in that building.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's something that's important. We don't have, as you know, an indoor recreational facility. So we do need the Board of Ed and those facilities to be able to do our events, and of course, they need us for those, so.
What about the proms?
Proms, we didn't discuss that. What we tried to do in this round was make it an even trade. So not all the schools will do their proms there, so we didn't include that.
So there's further discussion, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the graduations, the schools all use Civic Center, so
Which is one day now, isn't it?
I don't know if they're all in one day.
It's a rehearsal day, and then it's 2 days, Friday night and Saturday.
They're trying to knock them all out instead of throughout the week like they used to.
Right, and the graduations are paid direct through the school board, where the proms are paid direct through junior or senior class
Their fund.
through their fundraising efforts. So they're definitely two different animals there.
Correct.
The last thing I'll mention is, in this budget, what we tried to accomplish is to really recalibrate our resources to meet some of the new realities that we have at the Civic Center. So for instance, we've got carpet now that we've now have to care for, and that comes with equipment and different maintenance procedures, floor finishes, all these new things that we're putting in now. You're going to start to see in our operating budget a change in the way we allocate resources. Another example, obviously, we're now selling alcohol at the Civic Center. And so now with 6 months under our belt, we have a much better idea of how to staff that, how much we'll sell, and we can get into that, how to properly staff and all the rest. So all of that, we've got some new realities at the Civic Center, so this budget now reflects our transition in the way we're using our staff and the way we're using our resources to meet those needs. So I'll let Pam give you a few numbers, and happy to answer any questions.
Does everybody have Youth and Civic Center on there? Okay, thanks.
Like recreation, the Civic Center, we are requesting an increase in the appropriation. It's going up by $171,000, and it's broken down into basically 4 things. One small one relates to the raise to employees that has about a $5,000 impact on our numbers. Again, benefits, the allocation, that is a discussion to talk with HR, but our benefit number went up $52,000. So we budget for $52,000 to go up, so we need the appropriation to cover that growth. Back to capital purchases, we have put in for 2 vehicles out at the Civic Center to be replaced at $41,000. And then the last one is that recalibration that Steve was talking about. Now that we have time under our belt, we now know what our actual pricing is. We know what the market is willing to accept on purchases of alcohol. We made a kind of a dartboard number last year of what we thought we were going to make as net revenue for alcohol. We've revised that number down by $73,000. So we believe with that the alcohol has enhanced our catering business significantly. It has allowed us to actually get things that in the past would not come to us because they wanted a liquor license. Where we were surprised by some of the numbers, our concerts sell well, but they don't sell as high as we thought they would, which is twofold. It's great that we're not having any real alcohol problems, but it does offset the revenue. And we also made the decision not to hawk alcohol through the stands. We make alcohol available to people, but we don't walk through the stands trying to sell beer. So where we're really surprised is all the other events that we have there where we sell alcohol. Yes, we sell some, but very, very little. It's under $1 per cap that we're selling for like the rodeo and monster trucks and the Broadway shows. Our 2 concerts that we had back-to-back on opening weekend have been our major alcohol sellers for our public events. Avett Brothers and the Chris Young concert has been the majority of what we have collected at our public events. The other public events, people are buying it, but not at the level we thought. And so again, that's why we recalibrated the number.
So you're saying the alcohol sales have been disappointing
I,
to what you thought it was gonna be?
the alcohol sales have been different than what we thought it would be. And again, I really think, I won't say disappointing. I think I believe it has, again, really enhanced what we can offer in the catering business, which we've had events that have blatantly told us they're not coming here because they can't have a cash bar. And those events, we have booked several of those events that we couldn't do in the past. We are surprised by the numbers on the public events, but it also means that we're not having issues at the public events.
So you've
did
not
they
had
wanna
any
kick
issues at all, or?
Very, very few.
Very few.
Yeah, there's been, our staff that we've hired, we've got a professional staff, obviously that's overseeing the operation, and that's been critical to the little that you've probably heard about it as far as any issues there. The other thing that, we've learned a lot in the last 6 months, like Pam said, we didn't know exactly what the sales would be, what the issues would be. So we overstaffed it initially. There's a lot of different things that I think as we enter now a new year with some experience, we can recalibrate, get more efficient, and hopefully do a little bit better. But to your question, we didn't know what to expect, and it's been a little bit less than what we thought.
Who makes the decision to sell alcohol or not to sell alcohol? You were talking about you sell alcohol at the monster truck event.
Sure.
Okay. So we're getting real close to a kids event there. I mean, it's not. I mean, there's a lot of adults go. So at some point, there's a dividing line there between, is it a kids event or not a kids event? Who makes that decision?
We'll lift up our recommendations to the executive's office, but the Youth and Civic Center Commission, we use to vet, just like Wayne mentioned with the Tourism Advisory Board, we use our commission to help us vet those types of situations, but we'll make recommendation and make a decision on that.
And the promoter also, who's bringing the event in, also has a say in, so like Disney on Ice.
Well, I
They-
understand,
you know,
that.
They didn't want it
I would-
anyways.
I would hope not.
But again, the promoter who is bringing in the event is also going to have some say.
Yeah. The other question I have, and this doesn't really concern alcohol, the process of trying to find somebody to put in hockey. How is that going to affect when you put the floor down for hockey, having other events during that period of time when you're having hockey? Does it come in and out the floor, or does it stay?
Well,
yet.
Well, Chuck,
So you don't.
I'll let Chuck answer that.
I'll preface it to say hockey is in its infancy, just an exploring phase right now. But you would basically have, we did that floor work in the Civic Center a few years back when we put the electric services in. So you would do a portable tank system
Right.
that would live in there. Your goal would be from probably October to April is the season. Your goal would be to leave that tank system down as long as possible. Probably in January, you would bring it up for a 3 or 4 week window if you wanted to do monster trucks, rodeo, probably right before Martin Luther King weekend. And then you would put it back down. So it's labor intensive to put it up and take it back down.
So it's gonna
and then the
cost us
events-
other events in the end, probably, at some point in time?
We've researched, we'll have meetings with event organizers once we have all the parameters. You can put covers over those systems. If you go to the Washington Capitals, they put basketball right on top of the floor with a specific cover that keeps the cool air down on the ice, which reduces your costs. And we would do the same premise. You may have to ramp up over for trade shows and different things like that, but our goal would be to keep all of our clients and have a modified concert setup when ice is in play, and then have a standard setup when ice is not in play.
Okay.
So,
Well, that's
and-
some questions that's been posed to
yeah,
me.
Yeah, and
good question.
yeah, can I piggyback off that? Because, there's this big announcement, hockey's coming to Wicomico County, it's all in the news. And then, we're told, we're just in the exploratory phase. It's no big deal. So what is the story there? I mean, is there money in the budget for is there anything in the budget that deals
No.
with ice hockey?
And we didn't make that announcement, the media made that announcement.
Oh, okay, all right.
All we announced was that we had hired a consultant to give us guidance as to whether or not hockey was even feasible in this market and in that facility. Other people took it and ran with it.
Well, I mean, I saw a T-shirt, Delmarva Hockey, it was played up quite a lot. So, people expect hockey to come here, and I'm trying to tell people, we haven't gotten anything. We don't, and there's nothing in the budget for it.
Correct.
So, I just want to clarify.
There's nothing in this budget.
And we don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Is there any study that's gonna be done by the Maryland Stadium Authority involving this?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and they did, I mean, a few years back with, through Crossroads Consulting, they did a study, but, yeah, we would be consulting with them. There's a lot of steps that would need to happen. But there's nothing in this current budget that addresses that.
So what's the 785, 800 for?
That's for the restoration projects that we are planning to do, and that comes out of the room fee and the ticket fee, and it also comes out of the dedicated 1% that we get on the hotel tax. Room tax that goes to the Civic Center. And so we will buy like a lift to help, a man lift to help us. We will buy the carpet cleaners out of that fund. We'll buy some of the artwork and the plants and the chairs, and that's the kind of stuff that fund has funded in the past. The reason it is also 785, we have also funded, we have put in there to replace AC units in the Midway room for $200,000. So again, that's not coming out of any kind of appropriation from the county, but it is to do a maintenance project at the Civic Center.
All right. And right below that, is this bus sponsorships or business sponsorships?
Business sponsorship, that's revenue.
Okay,
So that
all right,
is,
yeah.
that is the Toyota box office, that's the
Okay,
Pepsi deal.
We didn't tell you about the bus trip?
I'm like, are you putting up ads on short? I mean, I was curious if this is about something like, was it bus or business?
No, it's short for business sponsorship. So that's where, we do have expenses, so when we get a new person, we have to put up a banner. So we do get revenue from that, but then we also have some expenses associated with that. So you'll see a revenue and an expense.
I think it's important to point out that the Civic Center, you've got major mechanical systems there that are quite old, and they're going to need investment. The roof, we did a roof enhancement there, if you will, a resurfacing there, I think about 10 years ago, and we're right up on 10 years. So it's a significantly sized building with significant mechanical systems that are older, and we're going to be looking at having to fund those improvements over the next, I'd say, 5 years.
Well, I saw a chiller in there for 15,000. Was that
Your-
air conditioning?
Yeah, you have actually in your pay-go list, again, that Schedule B that I was talking about, you have two major projects. The roof, some additional repairs, I believe, is in there at $200,000. And then we reprogrammed, again, we put in an amount, we make an estimate as to what we're going to do every year related to this cost, but we had to reprogram. We thought in 2017 we were going to fix our roof. Instead, one of our two chillers for the main arena went down, and if we had lost the second one, there would have been no air conditioning for the arena. So we went ahead and reprogrammed that money, went ahead and fixed that, but we have put in the pay-go request to the county to fix the second one so that both chillers operate and are new for the arena, and then we will also pay ourselves for the Midway one.
I'm sorry.
When the items that you were talking about will show up in the CIP next year?
Yes, sir.
Little history on that roof. It was budgeted to be replaced about 10 years ago.
Yep.
And thanks to one of our local contractors who volunteered to go on the roof after some controversy with Mr. Mackey's and the council and the executive, we got him on there. And we got you say we can get another 3 or 4 years out of it, maybe? 4?
Well, we actually had a roof study done. We had a roof study done
Yeah.
on here, on the Civic Center, and on Purdue Stadium. And they actually recommended total replacement of the Purdue Stadium. You'll see that in your request.
I'm talking about Civic Center.
But the Civic Center, they are requesting just fixing it.
Yes, and so we're gonna pull another 10 or 15 years out of this roof that we would have spent $200,000 or $300,000 on 10 year ago, 8 year, about 10 year ago, I guess. If this fellow hadn't come forward that knew the roof, that we would have, it'd been money wasted.
It
So,
did a
yeah.
very, very effective job.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So,
it has extended
yeah,
the life of
so,
that roof.
anyway. Sometimes
Very important.
controversy works out.
Can I go back to the statement you were mentioning about the vendors or venue promoters that demanded beer sales or they wanted a cash bar? My question was, did they want to do the cash bar themselves or they just wanted a beer sold here?
They want the availability, and that's on the catering side.
What do you mean availability for them to sell it?
No,
or-
for us. It's our
Yeah,
liquor
so
license.
they
We
just
sell
wanted-
it. They want the
For their
availability.
customers.
Correct. And
I got you.
the way we operated prior was BYOB.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to BYOB, so we had specific banquets that didn't want to have a BYOB policy, and thus they wanted a cash bar. We didn't have a liquor license, we couldn't provide a cash bar. Now that we have a liquor license, they can bring their banquet to us. It is our responsibility, it is our liquor license, we buy the liquor, their people coming pay for the alcohol, and they have nothing then to do with it because it's not on their catering tab.
Okay.
You have a much more controlled environment with us vending it than you have with BYOB.
I
Much more
thought with
controlled environment.
BYOB, they were just bringing a keg or something.
In reference to that, Steve, you talked about being overstaffed in your estimates for alcohol sales.
Right.
Can you break that down a little bit more? What overstaffed how?
I think we didn't know the volume, so when you're staffing, we had 4 or 5, I think, Chuck, stations when we first started to sell, so we didn't know how many stations we would need, we didn't know how much foot traffic we'd have. So we, for one, for control's sake, but two, to make sure we're serving the customers and they're not long lines, we tried to do as many stations as possible with as many employees as possible. We went through a lot of training
Okay.
with folks and
TAMS training and that
with
kind
a,
of thing.
yeah, with a lot of these events, like Pam noted, the volume's just not there. And as we learn that now, we'll be able to know, okay, country concert, you're gonna have to heavy staff. Something else, you may cut back staff. So it's just a learning experience or a learning process for us. And I think
Learning curve.
just because of all the history with this issue, we wanted to make sure when we got out of the gate that we were
You-
overstaffed or that we're covering our bases.
You mentioned
Insinuating
control.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, it's still related.
Sure.
You mentioned controls, and what kind of controls? Is the security increased because of this, or?
Chuck, maybe you can speak to.
Yes, basically, we have the alcohol trained staff that are
Right.
in the room, and then we also bring in additional at our cost, not to the client, to help monitor, to make sure alcohol is not being brought out. Nothing that would put our license in jeopardy. Our trained staff is fantastic. They monitor monitor the patrons, make sure there's not overconsumption based on the alcohol laws and all that for our license. So-
Okay, one other
So
point.
we do have extra people that keep eyes on the
Is
crowds.
the sheriff's staff involved in this?
Yes, we have, for the major ticketed events, we have deputies that are on site.
Do you
for the
add
ticketed
additional
events.
for alcohol because you have alcohol sales there?
We have not had to do that at this point. Those are assigned based on the size of the crowd and the type of event. So we've not seen a difference in that number having to go up.
Okay, one other thing, Joe.
I'm fine.
Okay. When you have contract with the sheriff's department, do you have to pay for that service?
Yeah, we pay the overtime rate for the deputies that get scheduled. It's an extra schedule shift.
Does that show in your budget anywhere?
It's per the event, comes out of the event.
Oh, so it's built into the
Individual
event cost?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
an
okay.
event expense.
You said you had to schedule more for country shows. Are you insinuating that country folks drink more?
No, straight that from the right.
They drink more than Disney on Ice Cream.
Was the revenue catering concession events, was that 500,000 difference? Was that a real number?
It was, we're making the change in what we're putting in for our gross up right now. It's not, the expenses went down by that same corresponding number. So it's a paper number.
It's a paper number, just like the concession of alcohols when it says 250 or 350,000 and then zero. That was just an anticipated and,
Correct.
okay, okay. Any other questions from anybody? Good. Thank you. You guys.
Thank you.
You guys give a good report. Thank you. Very good, thanks. Very good.
Thanks, Doug.
Do you get a cut of the sales from Disney on Ice, the $20 cotton candy sales and stuff like that?
I'll keep.
That is worked
Yeah.
out in the individual contract as which things were allowed to sell.
We adjourn?
They sell.
Oh, okay.
Recess.
Recess.